Good evening and welcome to the March 22nd Town Board Work Session. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If our clerk would please call the roll.
Drawe.
Here.
Kohl.
Here.
Lee.
Here.
Ockenden.
Here.
Thank you. Board, you have before you the minutes of February 22nd work session. Any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you. So moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Drawe.
Aye.
Kohl.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
Thank you.
4 ayes.
Monthly reports are in. Most all are in. Anybody who's not, you know who you are. So my staff and I will expect those. Next on our agenda is we have a couple of guests here tonight. And our first set of guests, I'm pleased to say, is from Bonadio, is our presentation of the 2022 financial statements from Mr. Randy Shepard and Murphy Smith are here tonight. So I'd like to welcome you all and for you to give the presentation to the board.
All right, thank you for having us. Good evening. We've got things that we've projected on the screens here for some folks. We also handed out to the board members the documents that are before you. I'll review some of them, and then Murphy will cover some as well. We won't go into great detail on the actual financial statements document themselves, or else we'd be here till 10 o'clock, so we'll stick to the summary stuff here. The first document that is on the screen now is what's called a required communications letter, and as the name implies, there's certain elements that we as the audit firm are required to communicate to the board as part of the audit process. And the way this is laid out is there's a bold caption that kind of obviously identifies the area. It describes that in the plain text, and then our response or any commentary to that is in the italicized bold section. So qualitative aspects of accounting practices, essentially what this talks about is that management decides and determines the appropriate accounting policies to be used in the financial statements, and those are all described in Note 1. If there's any changes or any new standards that were applied this year, that would be identified. I will say that there was a new standard this year that was implemented, but it did not have an impact on the town. That was GASB 87 for leases. And so we did evaluate that and determined that the impact of that was not material, so it was not necessary to record. And so that's what was going on there. And there was no other transactions that were entered into that did not have authoritative guidance, et cetera. The next category talks about accounting estimates. And really what this is referring to is that every set of financial statements has some element of estimation within it. Some are more or less significant than others. And what this letter is intended to do is identify those that we've deemed to be significant and or sensitive. And when you look at what we had identified in the first two paragraphs there, one is other post-employment benefits liability, and the second relates to the net pension liability. The reason those are sensitive is because they're actuarially calculated. So if you understand actuarial tables and calculations, small changes in discount rates or any other figures can have significant impacts on those numbers, and we've seen them historically. As you adjust your interest rate, as New York State changes its interest rate, et cetera, that impacts what the liability is, and so we just call that out to your attention. But we look at those assumptions, we look at the estimates and make sure that they're reasonable, which they were. Continuing on, again, the same reason that those were significant, we also call them sensitive for the same reason, so those same two items are pointed out there. Looking at difficulties encountered in performing the audit. This is really an important statement because we are hired by the town board to perform the audit process, so that's who we work for. But as you can imagine, we work with management to get the job done. And so for some reason we were unable to perform our duties, this is where we would call that out. But as you can see, we had no issues. This is actually the first town audit that I'm issuing, so it's a very quick turnaround from year end. So Barbara and her team, do a nice job. We obviously work with a lot of people within the town to get the job done. Yeah. And so we do appreciate that as well. Looking in the next area is corrected and uncorrected misstatements. And part of the obligation that we have as an audit firm, if we do identify adjustments through our audit process, we are required to bring them to your attention. We do have a few that we will show you in Exhibit A momentarily. And then we also have what are called uncorrected misstatements. Now, that sounds bad, but really what that means is because our audit is looking at whether the statements are fairly presented in all material respects, there are adjustments that are small that wouldn't impact a user's, reading of the statements or, impact the statements. And we may say, hey, listen, we're not going to book those. And we do have some that we'll disclose, and I'll explain what those are. We had no disagreements with management, and then we also will get a representation letter from you that basically says that you provided us everything we've asked for. Nothing has really changed since year end that would impact our opinion on the financial statements or the audit results that we had, and that allows us to issue these in final form, which we anticipate doing in the next couple days from that point. We're not aware at the top of the third page here of any consultations with other accountants. That's called opinion shopping, but we're not aware that that's happened. And throughout the year, you may call us for advice or questions on a matter. That's not a condition of our retention. That's just part of the normal relationship, and that's really what that represents. Okay. And then if we go to the adjustments, so that's on the Exhibit A. We've summarized them by fund for you, just to make it easier in case you had received maybe preliminary numbers. So that first row, unadjusted, would represent those unadjusted numbers, and then the adjusted figure will tie directly to the financial statements. And so when you look up and down, we've got adjustments in a few funds here. Nothing overly significant. The largest is really just a true-up of the fourth quarter sales tax, in the general fund, and that was actually an adjustment that Barbara provided to us. So because of the time of preparing for the audit, she makes an estimation. By the time we did our audit, the actual check came in, so we make an adjustment to what that would be trued up to. And then other adjustments relate to GASB 84, so truing up activity related to custodial type stuff. And let's see, what else here? And that's really the bulk of it here. If you look at, we go to Exhibit B, this is the past adjustments or the uncorrected adjustments that I mentioned. The first one relates to leases, so I mentioned that before. So there was the impact of implementing the standard would have been adjusting the town's books by about $29,000, both as a receivable where you're the lessor, and then booking a liability where you're the lessee. So those numbers essentially offset, and the impact of that is not significant when you look at materiality for the town. So we determined that it was okay not to book. Management obviously agreed with that, and that we're required to disclose that. And the second one is just a small adjustment because of the timing of payroll and when payroll is paid and when the COLA adjustments go in. The COLA adjustments, I think, went in place in the first pay period of the year. Some of that pay period related to a few days of 2022. Okay. So technically under accounting rules, it'd be 22 expense, but again, the impact was not significant year over year, so we left it alone, and that's the dollar impact there. Okay. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Murphy, who's going to cover some of the highlights, high-level information related to the audit. Murphy?
All right. So the first slide here talks about the auditor's responsibility for the audit of the financial statements. So our number one responsibility is to form an opinion as to whether the financial statements are presented fairly in all material aspects. So we did give an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which is the highest level of assurance we can give. That's another term for that would be a clean audit opinion. We also consider internal control over financial reporting when we are performing the audit. We are not actually auditing your controls, so we're not actually giving an opinion on internal controls, but if something came to our attention that we felt we needed to disclose to the board, we would tell you that and give you that recommendation. We didn't have any recommendations of that nature this year. An audit does not relieve management or the board of their responsibilities in ensuring that the financial statements are presented fairly. It's just our job to ensure that that is true. On the next slide, we'll get into financial highlights. So the first slide here is looking at the town as a whole, the government-wide financial statements of the town. So this is on the full accrual basis of accounting. So the net position for the town is based on three main components. The first is net investment in capital assets, and there's about $87 million in that category. That category is simply calculated as your capital assets less any capital-related debt you have on the liability side. The second category is your restricted net position. So certain of your net position is restricted by external sources. So you have reserves in each of your fund. They are all in this total $13.7 million figure there. And then also in your special revenue funds, that fund balance is considered restricted. And so that would be like, for example, your highway fund, that fund balance is restricted to be used for highway purposes. And then the third category is unrestricted net position. And as you'll see, that's actually a negative number. This is not unusual, and it's not anything to be concerned about. If you look here below, this kind of shows some of the impacts on the statement of net position that caused that number ultimately to go negative. So these are non-cash liabilities that result from reporting your net pension liability, which we talked about earlier, your other post-employment benefits liability, and your debt. So all of those will ultimately cause your unrestricted net position to appear negative, though overall your fund balance is your net position is positive. And this is only at the government-wide level. Those liabilities are only recorded at the government-wide level under the full accrual basis of accounting. So as you'll see in upcoming slides, none of your fund balance is negative at the fund level. So that's nothing to be concerned about. As for your revenues for the town as a whole, your general revenues, which include mortgage tax, non-property tax, and real property taxes, that accounted for about $19.2 million of your total revenue, about 72%. That's about the same percentage as last year. Last year, those revenues were about $18 million. And then your program-specific revenues, so those include charges for services and operating and capital grants and contributions. Those account for about $7.4 million, about 28% of total revenues. And we'll go into some of the fluctuations from the prior year in the next slides.
Can I interrupt for one moment, please?
Yeah.
For the program-specific revenues, are you able to point me where in the...
In the financials?
Yes.
Yes. If you go to page 14, if you were to add up the charges for, it's the column headers, charges for services, operating grants and contributions, and capital
That's-
grants and contributions.
Yeah, that's fine. Great, thank you.
So this next slide is talking about the total of your governmental funds. So this is looking at the fund level, what's called the modified accrual basis of accounting. So your government-wide only items aren't reflected here. So like, for example, your capital assets, your pension and OPEB liabilities we just discussed. So GASB sets the definitions for these categories, and they're presented here most to least restrictive. So the first category of fund balance you have is non-spendable fund balance, and that means exactly how it sounds. You cannot spend it because it's already spent. So this balance matches your prepaid expenditures, so cash that already went out the door prior to year end, so it can't be spent. The next category is your restricted fund balance. That's the same number as it was on the previous slide. So that is your town's reserves and the fund balance of the special revenue funds. The next category is your assigned fund balance. So the town board and the town supervisor can elect to put aside a separate bucket of money for future planned uses. So the town has set aside $16.2 million for specific purposes. So some of those purposes include $240,000 for use in the 2023 budget. You had that budgeted to use that much of fund balance in the 2023 year. About $13.4 million is planned for future infrastructure and equipment purchases. About $1.6 million to be used for even farther in the future years' budgets. And then about $180,000 or $890,000 for future cost of living adjustments and healthcare cost increases that are projected.
And that detail is on page 45 of the financial statements, just in case you wanted to see that.
Okay, thanks.
And the last category of fund balance is unassigned fund balance. So that is only going to be in your general fund because it's unassigned. It can be used for any purpose of the town.
Barbara, I think in an earlier work session in February when we were looking at, I think, some of the presentation for the upcoming capital projects, I think the assigned fund balance, and I could have totally written this down wrong, but I had it as of that date closer to 13 million, but I see here that it's looking at just over 16.
13.4 was assigned specifically for the capital and infrastructure, so
Okay.
that's part of the assignments.
Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
So this slide is just looking at the general fund itself. So as I mentioned on the last slide, your unassigned fund balance that can be spent for any purpose of the town is about $2.2 million. Your total fund balance is about $21.9 million, and that increased about $4.5 million, or 26% from 2021. Your total revenues in the general fund increased from 2021 by about $1.2 million, or 9%. The majority of that increase is sales tax, which increased about $1.1 million, and that's consistent with what we've seen across the state. As for your expenditures, these did increase as well, about $1.2 million from last year. It's really various small changes that caused this increase, but to highlight a few, there were payments made related to the town's solar power purchase agreement. That was about $380,000. Some increases in salaries from last year as people were hired on full-time, such as the Director of Communications. And then there's also work done on the Rothfuss Park project for approximately $277,000. Upgrades related to the Penfield Community Television for about $81,000 as a grant was received to do some technology upgrades there. Some server upgrades and laptop purchases for about $65,000, $73,000 new sidewalk installation. You know, I could go on and on. There's just a lot of small things that increased from last year, but you know, your increase in expenditures is about the same rate as your increase in revenues. The next slide is looking at your governmental funds as a whole, so not just your general fund. One of the most significant increases here from last year would be in cash and investments. So that's about a $6.2 million increase. About $1.9 million of that is because the town received the second ARPA, American Rescue Plan payment during the year for about $1.9 million. As that hasn't been spent yet, that's still sitting there in cash. And then the remaining of that increase is just due to a positive change in fund balance overall as revenues exceeded your expenditures for the year. That American Rescue Plan payment that was received, you can also see that down here in unearned revenue. That's the reason for that increase, because you haven't spent any of that yet, so it's not considered earned. And then the last most significant change here on the balance sheet would be in the assigned fund balance category, which we just spoke about. The town has elected to put more aside for future infrastructure, since you know you're going to have the DPW project going on in the future, Clark House, and other future improvements that might come along in the future. The next slide is your statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for the governmental funds again. The most significant increases here are really on the revenue side and your tax items. And that is about the $1.1 million increase related to sales tax that I mentioned earlier. And then your expenditures increased, as I mentioned before. You know, I went through those general fund increases, but also looking at the town as a whole, there was an increase of about $700,000 related to the highway fund, various equipment purchases, vehicle purchases, increases in fuel costs, which everyone has seen this year. An increase in snow and ice over time as it was a harder winter in early 2022 than the year before, those kinds of things. You also did additional work in the drainage fund this year for about $411,000, purchased an excavator, drainage pipe replacement projects, and culvert replacement projects.
Great, and then lastly, just to close on a couple upcoming items related to future GASBs that might impact the town. GASB 96 is related to subscription-based information technology arrangements. That's a mouthful. SBITAs is what they're called. Very similar to the lease standard. Essentially what that means is that by having a subscription-based IT arrangement, it's a right to use an asset. The accounting setter is saying, hey, that you have a right to use that asset. You need to recognize that asset on your books as an asset, and you recognize the liability. So the types of things that they're talking about are even like Microsoft 365, those licenses. Potentially, you don't use QuickBooks Online, obviously, but if you had a cloud-based ERP system potentially that was subscription-based. Those are the type of things that we'll look at. So, that'll be what you'll have to assess during this fiscal year because it's effective for 2023.
Okay.
And then the last item, the next item is GASB 101 related to compensated absences. And this is something, obviously compensated absences have been around for a long time, but sometimes what they do is they look at standards and realize in practice that when you look at it, people have gone astray and come up with different processes or different things are in place now that weren't in place when they implemented the standard. So the intent of this is to kind of bring practice in alignment and really redefine what a compensated absence is, when you recognize that liability, when you have to incur it, et cetera. So it clarifies that. That's effective for next fiscal year, so 2024. And essentially the keys of this are, it defines it as something that's attributable service that's already rendered. It accumulates over time, and that the leave is more likely than not to be used for time off or otherwise paid in cash through some way. So that's kind of just the really high-level definition. So again, something to look at. It may or may not impact what you're doing right now, but it will require us to relook at the agreement you have in place, the different things that are there to see how it may impact your reporting. And with that,
Randy, can I just ask a question on
Yeah.
that? Is that something effective for 12/31/24? Is that something totally new? It's just a.
no, like I said, there's always been,
there's
you've
always
always
been something,
recognized it.
right.
What they're trying to do is make sure that everybody across the country is implementing it the same
The
way
same
or
time.
actually treating it the same way,
Right.
because there's a big divergence in practice related to that.
Okay.
When what people pick up. And really the types of benefits that are provided now are different than they were many years ago when
Okay.
they established these rules. So that's what they're doing there.
Okay. Thank you. Board, thank you, Randy. Thank you, Murphy. Board, questions?
Thank you. It's
Anything?
always a good
It's a real-
presentation, nice and succinct. Appreciate it.
And I can attest that they were, your staff, I know Randy was here too, Murphy was here, with Barbara here for a week. You guys did a stellar job of reaching out to all the departments, I know, very polite, very accurate group, so
Thank you.
I want to thank you for that. I mean, we've had you doing our audits for I don't know how many, what year is this?
As long as I can remember.
It's been a long time, so.
A little while. I
Very,
was a young lad.
You were a young guy, but thank you very much. We do appreciate it, and we'll take a look at this and delve in.
Thanks to Barbara and everyone for all of their help, as always, too, and all the departments we work with, too.
Thank you.
They always make it easy for
Yep,
us.
the
So.
staff is, absolutely. Barbara, I think, did a lot of, all the pre-work. I can attest, running back and forth for questions and answers, so thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Randy, Murphy.
Thank you.
Okay,
you.
have a wonderful night. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Rhonda, our librarian, we have a presentation here on a remodel of the Ruth Braman room at the Penfield Library with both Barbara and our librarian, Rhonda Rossman, here. If you'd like to, oh, there you go. They got a presentation, they got a nice presentation.
Sure.
Thank you.
Last night. Yeah.
I don't, you got that?
Rhonda, I'll take one if you have.
Oh, yeah. Oh, here, I'll share this one. Oh, it's fine?
Thank you.
Great, everybody on the,
I got it.
perfect? We got it, we're good, I think, thank you. You have the floor.
Thank you for inviting us. I want to mention that Megan Griffin-Adams, library trustee, is here to support the library. So the handout that I've given you is 4 pages. The first page and the second part of that first page is a PowerPoint that we'll have on the screen in front of us that we can follow, but I just gave you the paper in case you would like that. And I want to thank Brian from PCTV for formatting that for us. Then I have 2 estimates for the project in this packet. And then the last page, which is the most important, is the library's long-range strategic plan that we wrote in 2022. So the library is working really hard to bring people back into the library after the pandemic, and one of our key goals is to provide a contemporary facility to support the ever-changing needs of the community. And just so you have an idea of how many people use the library and how many people come to the Ruth Braman room, in 2022, 153,981 people came into the facility, the library part of the facility, and that's a 30% increase from 2021. So we're working on this, and we're trying to get more people to come back into the library. Program attendance included 141 adult programs in the Ruth Braman room with 1,918 people attending. We had 80 teen programs in the Ruth Braman room with 691 teens attending. And if you have ever worked with teens, that's a spectacular number. In addition, we had 320 programs for children with 9,657 children coming into the library for these programs. Some of those programs for the children were in the Storytime room, but the bulk of them were in the Ruth Braman room. In addition, community members do have the ability to reserve the room and use it for their own nonprofit purposes. So it is certainly a well-used space, and the community does see it often. So the presentation shows you some pictures, and I just wanted you to see the condition that the space is in right now. It's been a very long time since we've had a renovation. We have a small kitchen area that, when I first came on board, we asked Jim Kreckman to unplug the stove. I felt it was an unsafe situation. We have too much stuff in the room, paper and old appliances, and it has to be cleaned out. And the appliances are very, very old, and they do need to be replaced. Here's another picture, and it just shows you how very inefficient the space is right now. And so with the kitchenette proposal, we would like to clear all of that out, replace the appliances that we need, which really, we just want a sink. We don't want a stove in there. It's just really too small a space. We want kitchen cabinets, we want countertops, and we want to be able to use this space for our programming. In 2021, the former library director applied for a grant from Assemblyperson Lunsford and received $20,000 for the kitchenette portion of this project. It has not been used yet, and I've been told that we do need to use it soon. So the board and I talked about the fact that we have $20,000 to work with, but honestly, we need more funding because we would like to expand outside that small kitchen area. Adjacent to the kitchen is what used to be the elementary school's projection room. So when you walk into this space, you actually go up a few steps, and there's a window where the old projection cameras were in the elementary school. We want to take out this elevated space and keep it flat so we can use this for storage for the tables and chairs, so they're not out in the open space while we're having a program. These are pictures of that area. And this is the rest of the meeting room. I mean, it's a nice sized space. We can fit 100 people in there. In fact, just last Saturday we had, well, actually a little bit over 100 people, to be quite honest, but we had Linda Sue Park come to do a children's program, and we had over 80 young 8 to 12-year-olds to see Linda Sue Park, and their parents lined the
Sides.
the aisles. It was crowded, but it's a great space. It's a wonderful space. It's just somewhat aged. It's just, it needs a redo. So you can see in the pictures the carpeting. You can see the old-fashioned doors are a different color, and we would like to paint the space. We would like to get new carpeting. Here are some better pictures. We would like to have new tables and chairs. They're very, very old, and they've been used for a lot of arts and crafts, you can tell. And we do need an assistive listening device in the room. We have worked with Mark Valentine and Eric Tait and Jim Kreckman to talk about what needs to be done in the room, and we have had 2 contracting companies come in to give us estimates. we are requesting from the town board at least $22,000 for this project, and that would allow us to paint and change the flooring and just do a better redo of the entire space. But the board is actually asking for $26,000 possibly, because we're concerned that there might be issues once that, that floor is picked up, or there might be some issues with the electrical because it hasn't been used in a very long time. So that's what we're asking for, $26,000. I will tell you that the board is very excited about this project, and the board is willing to pay for the tables and the chairs, which come to about $20,000 with the Gift and Memorial Fund. So they are contributing as well. If this is a possibility, we can get started in September. As soon as summer reading is over, we have a ton of programming planned between now and through the summer. But we can open up the room in September after the big Friends book sale, and hopefully get it done by October, November. So, yes, questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So Rhonda, so when you said, so $20,000, you have a grant.
We have
from-
$20,000
Yep.
already on a capital line.
And now you're saying your estimate, or is there an estimate from, for
We have
another,
two
for
estimates that come
26,000?
out to a total of about $42,000.
42,000, okay.
Right, and the board
That's
is
the whole,
concerned, so we're asking for the extra $4,000 just as a little
as a buffer,
buffer in case.
in case,
The 20,000 was just for the kitchenette.
correct.
Right.
Yes, just
Teaching
for the-
kitchen is
It
how
had
it
to
was
be, that was how it was
Yes.
designated to use it for, correct.
Correct.
The additional one is for, when you said tables and chairs, then you just mentioned that you had
That's
gifted.
coming from the Gift and Memorial Fund that the board has a control over.
Okay.
Those are
So that-
donations from the last, 40, 50 years
Okay.
from our patrons.
So they're going to give you a $20,000 on the gift, and so,
That's what the board is committed to doing.
so technically, we are looking at the total project will end up being
About $60,000.
Okay, that's where I was getting
Right.
to, okay. So but you're looking for us, from the board, you're looking at about $26,000.
$26,000, if that's a possibility.
And now,
Yes.
Barbara, I think we do have ARPA funds that we've designated already.
The board.
Talked about.
Right.
I'm sorry,
It
I
was
should say
spoken about
talked about,
last
spoke
year.
about.
And as you recall from what was already, you guys already earmarked out of
Yep.
ARPA, we still have over 1.2 million
Mm-hmm.
left earmarked, I guess, and
Yep.
from what we did
Yep.
over the summer. So there are funds available if the board, decides that this is a good use of ARPA funds, which obviously it's going to benefit the community, so it seems like it would be a good use.
Yep, okay. Candace, question?
Sorry,
Yep.
I'm trying to understand the math. So as part of the quote here that I see from FW Construction Corp., I'm seeing approximately 42,000. I see a second quote by RW Dake, Construction for 42. So it itemizes kitchenette in both, and plumbing, removal of appliances or whatnot related to the kitchenette. So am I understanding that the grant of the 20,000 would cover the two separate quotes for only the kitchen line item?
The 20,000, well, I think that, I've spoken to Assemblyperson Lunsford, and she wants to get this done. So when you think about the kitchenette, that floor in the kitchenette is part of the floor of the overall room. So I
Okay.
think that we can use part of that. The walls, we have the one wall that's still the concrete, the old, I don't know if there's a picture here. Let me show you what it looks like. Can you see on that
Yes.
top picture? It's almost like concrete blocks. It looks like
the
a
cinder
basement.
blocks?
So that extends into the kitchenette. So that is part of the overall wall repair.
Okay.
So it wasn't divided up specifically between the
Okay.
kitchenette on these estimates. But roughly $20,000 is going into the kitchenette, and roughly $20,000 is going into the other part.
Of the 20,000 that's the board is committed, you said, from the memorial fund, right? So
No. The library board or the town board?
Library board.
library board.
Yes. That's just for furniture.
Furniture.
Oh, for furniture.
That's
So
not in
that
this-
cost
that's not
is
in
not
this piece.
included
Yeah,
in
and that's not
this.
included in there.
Not included.
I cite that to show the importance that the board brings to this project. It's a large amount of money for them to donate, but they feel it's very important. And you know, when you look at the numbers of how many people are in that room, I think you understand why.
Do you have an estimate on the furniture costs?
Yes.
What is that estimate?
It actually comes, it's, let's see, I have it written down. 10 30 by 72 tables with wheels would be 6,770, and 100 stackable fabric-backed cushion chairs with arms would be 14,000.
I see, so you do have a delta, okay.
Tables and chairs. Anybody? Pete, question?
So following up on what Candace was asking about, I just want to make sure, in looking at the estimate, it's not clear to me that well, let me ask it this way. If it turns out that the kitchen, redoing the kitchen only costs $15,000, then does that mean that there's a shortfall to cover the whole project?
The $20,000 from Assemblyperson Lunsford is already on the line. It was given to us last year.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is, if it's earmarked for only the kitchenette,
Right.
and it's unclear on this estimate how much the kitchenette would cost, because, for example, like, in the first estimate, it's only $10,500. So that's just one
Right.
question. The other question I have is, whether or not you've included design costs, or whether there would need to be, any design costs for, I don't know, is there a need for any architectural to do any of the, like, removal of the stairs and make sure that, or would that be done by staff in-house? Okay.
Yeah.
And then I want to make sure that the estimates that you received also would be for prevailing wages and things like that.
Right.
So,
They are both
okay.
companies that were recommended by
Oh,
town
that's
staff
right, you said that.
approval.
Okay.
And they were there when the original estimates last summer were given.
Okay.
So they did ask quite a few questions.
that's right, you said that.
So I see your point about the $20,000 for the kitchen. And I did explain to Assemblyperson Lunsford, the situation we're in. She didn't seem to think I needed to go back and readjust the grant proposal. She thought it would be fine. But I can do that if you would prefer.
I just want to make sure that, you can use it,
I see what you're saying, that if the kitchen only comes up to be $15,000, can we still keep the original, the extra 5 and use that towards,
Right.
that's what I think the question is. That we want to make
And it's a
sure.
valid point. I hear what you're saying. I had a discussion with her. It seemed to be okay, but
Right.
I can go back to her and get it in writing if that's what you prefer.
I don't think it's a requirement for the town. I think we just
We just want to make sure.
want to make sure that the
Right.
library gets that grant in
Yeah,
full.
yeah.
Right,
It's not going to, I think, impact our decision.
No.
Right.
At least I don't think so.
But we have
We've done this before.
we have the
It's
money
already on
already.
a line.
We
It's
have the
already-
money.
we already have
We've
it.
gotten the money, so, right.
When you say we, you mean the library?
The
library.
library's gotten,
Okay.
yeah, I'm sorry,
Yep.
I should say, yes,
I mean,
the
check was
library.
Cashed and
State
deposited.
appropriation.
It's there.
It's in the
You have-
library fund.
When
It's in the library.
with this particular kind of grant, we had a little bit of time to use it.
Mm-hmm.
When I met with her, I told her that, and this is, I met with her, I'm thinking about 3 months ago, for library advocacy.
Mm-hmm.
And she asked me how the kitchen project was going, and I told her that the library board was really hoping for a large renovation or perhaps a new building, and that we were kind of holding on to the money. And she said, no, don't hold on to the money, spend it. And I told her about the room, and I had an appointment with her to come and view the space, but she canceled, and she's hoping to come in the next few months, but I don't know if that will actually happen.
So many ones we've had before that, State Senator Alisi used to give, or Rich Funky in the building with the highway uses, or the lacrosse field. I mean, it's not a difficult thing to work with. I don't think it'll be a
She's very
problem.
supportive of libraries.
Yes.
I don't think it'll be a problem, but
No.
like I said, I'm happy to get anything in writing if that's what you prefer.
We good? I'm good.
If I may, I mean, I think, this came, we never really had a concrete application after Rhonda came that Bunny put together that you could look to. But you have to spend the money. You were granted the money for the kitchenette. But as Rhonda looked at around the surrounding area, there's much more to do to make it more user-friendly.
Absolutely.
And this is one of the community rooms we have in our town, I think it's the most utilized.
I
The
agree.
community room that has the across the way is highly utilized, but this one's more cozy, and you got the screen. You can do programs. They do so many things in that room that you really want to make sure it's up to par. And I think to Rhonda's benefit, the more she looked into things, she saw it needs a little help, a little refresher to be.
It does.
We were over there
More
visiting it
appealing.
yesterday. It definitely needs a refreshing.
It does. I'm a resident of Penfield for 20, how old is my daughter? 22 years. 23
You took her
years.
there, too, when you're-
23 years. And I've been a librarian for all of this time, and I was a director of Pittsford for a very long time. So when I took this position, I had brought my children here for story time and to get books and all of that, but I didn't come to the library very often because I worked in a library. I was in the library all day. And when I came in, it had been a while since I'd really looked at the facility. And, as a Penfield resident, my first thought was, we have to invest. We have to invest in this facility because it is a vital facility for the town. It's a source of community congregation. It's a source of education. Our library does so much for our town, and I think it's my personal opinion that we really need to invest in it. And this is just the first step that I will be
Right.
proposing. I will be proposing many more, but this is the first one.
One thing you didn't mention, though, it is the library that it controls the Braman room, but there's a relationship with the rec department, and often they use it as well.
Yes, they use it at least twice a week, actually.
And we actually use it for elections sometimes.
We do.
go.
We
It's a very
We
very
do.
well-used building.
You're saying the
room.
kitchenette, that's what you guys are using too? That
We're
same
using the Braman room.
The Braman
room
room.
itself?
Barbara, I hate to put you on the spot. I know that we had looked at the library fund at the beginning of the year prior to adopting the budget, and sorry, I can only grab the tentative budget, but it's showing approximately $2 million on the library line for 2023. I don't know if you're able to rattle off kind of what we might have had at least earmarked or anticipated for library and for appropriations this year.
Well, if you look at the fund balance contribution.
I see the fund balance, yeah.
Right, so we're using the 20,000 because that project was anticipated for this year. So 20,000, and then they put in an additional,
I think 40,000.
yeah, I was trying to remember your exact dollar amount. But that, because they received that money and they knew they were going to spend it this upcoming year,
Okay.
that is appropriated there towards this project and a capital line.
Yep.
We have to do the kitchen regardless.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we can't go back to our local elected officials and ask for more money.
No.
We have to spend this one first.
Yeah.
So that was part of the plan for this year.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for the
Yep.
clarification.
And we will be, Rhonda did get the quotes and estimates based on companies that Jim Crackman recommended.
Yep.
Obviously, it will be going to public bid based on the dollar amount, so I'll work with Rhonda.
I was just gonna ask you that.
We can work with that.
We'll go
Eric
out to
has
bid.
specs, so
Okay.
we'll put it out for public bid.
Okay, so it's already been accounted for
Right.
in that case?
Yes.
Okay, so what do you need from us
We
tonight,
need-
Barbara?
How about, we need somebody to move this ahead and agree?
Go out to bid,
If the board
to take it to the next step.
agree, the board would agree to spend the additional, to
I would
contribute?
move that we
Money?
contribute not to exceed $26,000 to.
I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, Linda.
sure.
Can I ask just one more question?
Yeah.
So Barbara, if we agree to the requested 26, which we all acknowledge and agree that it's greater than the quoted at this time, but we're allowing for a variance, and then our invoice is submitted afterwards, such that if there is leftover money, then is it then reallocated from the library fund to a different fund?
Right, what I will do, if the board agrees that we'll use ARPA money for this project, I will do a board resolution earmarking like I did in the summer, and I will say estimated up to 26,000. Once the project is actually bid and we know the full price, that's when I would move the money to the library to spend.
Okay, so when it was previously decided as part of the the budget, was it already earmarked to be coming from ARPA funds, or was it?
No.
No, it was
Okay.
discussed.
We discussed it.
It was discussed last year as a potential, but the only ones that were actually formally done for ARPA was the Shadow Pines, the LED streetlights, and the Four Corners
The larger
improvements.
items.
The larger items.
This was if we had some extra money that
Right.
was important enough to utilize.
Well, and
Okay.
ARPA funds are supposed to be used for the community.
And this
I
is
mean,
I'm not-
definitely for the
or-
community.
It's for a good use, for a good, is that, you'd rather see us not get it from a fund?
I don't know, I guess it's up for discussion, right? I'm not saying that I'm not saying I'm not going to allocate it's
Yeah,
clearly
sure.
part of the
Yeah,
budget,
right.
but I don't
Yes.
recall, I'm sorry, you said it was already designated from ARPA funds? Was that like a decision?
No, I
Okay,
think
so
the
that's why I
ARPA
guess-
fund, isn't it, we had it designated for those capital projects, but wasn't there something in there that says or other items that may?
So out of our full ARPA money,
Yes.
we still have 1.2 million that has not been earmarked for anything.
Right.
So,
Right.
So of the projects that are currently receiving ARPA money, for example, we know the Shadow Pines, the total end cost is going to exceed what we've already allocated from ARPA. Does the board want to discuss potentially using additional of the remaining ARPA funds that have not yet been designated to throw it at the projects that we've already approved and gone forward with?
I don't think 26,000 is gonna.
we don't have the bids for the
Yeah,
Shadow
for the
Pines
Shadow Pines.
infrastructure and pickleball courts yet. The estimate for, from the summer was 1.63 for infrastructure, the pickleball courts at 370. This is from ARPA money.
Yes.
Direct from
Yes.
ARPA money. The LED streetlights, 450 from ARPA money. And then the Four Corners improvements, which is the stamped concrete and some handicap accessibility, that was approximately 100,000. So this was what we had, based on estimates, that was going to be ARPA money used towards those projects. So that leaves that leaves 1.2 million of our ARPA allocation
That's a lot.
that the board was going to decide, later this year or into 2024, other projects. Or, as you said, if something comes in higher, you'd still have flexibility because we didn't designate all of the ARPA money. So this would be utilizing out of the 1.2 million,
and
26,000.
I see where you're coming from, but to me, up to $26,000 is a kind of a nominal
It'll probably be less.
cost
than that.
for what we have left, the 1 point, I don't know, to me, it seems like there would be a good use of using this,
For the community.
and we can.
So to be clear, I'm not saying that I'm not,
know,
to be
I
clear,
know.
I'm not saying that, no, I'm not wanting to allocate any money to it. I understand that it's already been allocated. I guess my concern with we have competing multiple
Sure,
projects
yeah.
this year, and for me, it's hard to kind of delineate in my mind what's going where from what fund without seeing it in a more global way. So to, I guess, allocate money in piecemeal like this without seeing a running tally of what's going to be left after or what else is coming down the pipeline, that's where I'm just asking, is
Yes.
if we don't do it from ARPA, would it be coming from a different fund? Would it be coming from the library, like where we have of the appropriations on the library line item? Is there a different fund that, again, still giving them their requested ask, but is there a different fund that would then free up other projects that don't have as much on their line item in the town budget or do not qualify for ARPA? So we just have one pot of money, and I'm just trying to figure out how to best
Right.
move things around so that each project
Right.
gets its fully funded resource. That's
Okay.
so if we don't use the ARPA money, is there a different fund where the library project can still be funded?
We would fund, because it's a facility improvement, we would fund it from general fund. So that's where our overall, as Bonadio just went through, that is, the largest fund with the largest availability of money. Obviously, what we have set aside for infrastructure already, but also in your unassigned fund balance, that $2 million is for any need that arises, which that's why you always like to have something available for a need that the town board determines throughout the year that they want to fund. So, I mean, the ARPA money, it's not, when you say it's one pot, yes, in the bank it's one pot, but as it's delineated in the financials, it is in its own separate category.
Yep.
Right.
So I have it
Yeah.
accounted for in its own separate category.
I know you do. And I think that's the best place to take this money from, for the reason that this is for the community. This is one of the things, had we had that on our list earlier on, I think we would have put it there, because this is definitely, it's impacting so many children and their parents and different groups that come in and out of there. It's one of the better projects that I think we have on the list, if we add it to the list, because of its impact.
It is.
Anyway.
Okay.
Are you comfortable? Is that,
Yeah, my only concern would be that numbers come back higher. Is this a pretty, just because it sounds like that's how things are going currently. I'm not opposed to the dollar amounts as they are, and I'm not opposed if it comes back higher, but would we just account for that? We would just make sure that, we don't have to go back out to bid? I mean, is there a way to bid that so
well,
that
and
we don't?
hopefully these are from 317 and
Yeah,
314.
our original estimates were back last summer, and I spoke to them, and I said we needed updated bids, and I told them when we plan to do it. So
Gotcha.
I think that-
I just didn't know if, they put these together, but it hasn't gone out to formal bid, so I'm guessing
Right.
nobody's showing their true numbers here because they probably don't want them publicized before it goes out to
Well,
bid. That's my guess, but.
one of them is that Dake is on state contract, and I don't think we actually have to go to a formal bid if we use one of these companies. I can't remember which one, if it's FW or Dake. I think it's FW, actually, right? Oh, okay. Well, Jim told me that.
Okay.
One of these companies on state contract doesn't have to go out to bid. We can just pick it if we choose.
Okay.
I think it was FW.
And we will, obviously will certainly,
But we would anyway, because we would want to. We want to get a better price.
Yeah.
Right.
But if it came down to that, we would just pick the one that we know we can use.
and obviously, the contract would have to go to the town board for approval. So,
Yes, yes.
if perchance it comes in very high, the board has a
Can say-
chance to go back and say,
Yep.
okay, that, we're going to cut back on something, we're not going to do that, so
Yeah.
you'd still have the opportunity not to award a bid, even when it goes out
fine
to
with
the
it?
public.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Well, Linda, since you're on the library
Because I get all passionate about this.
I know.
I
Would you like to move that?
I would move that we take 26,000, not to exceed 26,000 from the ARPA monies that are allocated to us to pay for, well, this list of things you can
Sure.
submit this, the painting and the, well,
The
there's a whole list. I can't
renovations,
list
For
them
our
all.
part of the
It's
renovation.
all in this bid. Yes.
So, can I get a second?
I'll second that.
How's that? Okay. How about a roll call vote? Ms. Steckloff?
Drawe,
Yes.
Kohl,
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
Four
Thank you.
ayes.
Thank you all
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you,
Very, very
Rhonda.
much appreciated.
Thank you for coming tonight, too, and you're our littlest library patron for supportive over there.
No, she spends time in the Braman room. She's
Thank
the
you very
age.
much. So,
Thank you.
have a wonderful night.
Let her
Thanks.
present. How can I say no?
I know.
Have a good night.
All right. So we're moving right ahead here till, to action items. We're going to wait until Mr. Tait gets up here
He
for
hobbles
our.
up here?
Pardon?
As he hobbles
As he
up with
hobbles
his
up
bad
here,
knee?
he's got a little,
What happened?
he doesn't know.
Did Debbie kick you
You're
after the
okay
tour?
Monday night?
No, I did not. He was very good on the tour. So, next on the agenda here, action items, thank you, is the Department of Public Works facility update. Mr. Tait, I know this is going to be a short little update because we just had a tour here last night.
Yes.
Or the other night, Monday night, sorry.
Yep, thank you. As many of you were able to kind of tour the building again this past Monday, at this point, everyone's been through the building at least once, if not twice, and some of you
More.
way more than that.
Yep, yep.
Just a quick recap over the past, little over 6 years. We've been looking, kind of exploring ideas of construction and/or renovations of a new facility. Did have MRB in here a month ago to actually help with a presentation as to kind of where we started, where we are at this point. We're looking to remain on the same site at 1607 Jackson Road, with the idea that we would essentially flip-flop the site. The new building would actually be built on the kind of north half of the property in place of the outbuildings behind the current sewer and facilities operations center building. And then those outbuildings could get kind of reconstructed on the south half of the portion where our current L-shaped building is. Again, the reason we're looking at doing this, the original facility itself was built in 1957 at a time where we had approximately 13,000 residents. As of today, we have roughly 40,000. So the number of vehicles that we had, the services we needed to provide when the original building was constructed compared to what we're trying to do now, the size of the vehicles, the number of employees that we have, is quite a bit greater at this point. The facility served us well for the past 65 years, but, it's really beyond its useful life. There have been additions and renovations to the existing building, but there's only so much you can do. We looked at, early on, possibly doing further additions onto the building. However, just because of the site layout, the only way you'd end up doing that, you'd have to actually expand in any given direction, and then you'd end up actually double parking vehicles, and it wouldn't really be convenient or even safe for that reason. Trying to repair it again really isn't cost effective. So ultimately, looking at a new building, from an energy efficiency standpoint, as well as just kind of in daily operations itself.
Do you have the proposed new building on here, or is that coming up on here, or no? Maybe it isn't.
I didn't have it on here.
That's okay.
I know
I
it's
thought
Looking
it
back
was.
to see if I had the picture of it another.
That's okay.
I know it's was actually the presentation from last month was recently added to the website.
Yep. It was.
Might be able to pull it up
Yes,
from
it
there.
is, I think, on the front of it. I can, I'm not connected.
So ultimately, we're
Okay.
looking to see, and again, as we've kind of talked over the past 6 years,
Okay. Yep.
I think we're at a kind of
We're
a
at the
good
next stage.
conceptual plan point. Ultimately, the next step,
Is
if the board is still in favor, would be to reach out, back out to MRB and request that they provide a proposal for the architecture and engineering
Sure.
services to actually design the building. We've got
Okay.
a nice kind of overall conceptual plan, but
Yep.
to really refine what the actual cost would be, we need to do the actual design of the building.
So thank you for summarizing that, Eric. So can I just hear from the board? We heard the facility cost estimate a couple weeks ago. The differences between the 22 truck garage building and the 26 garage building. What are you all leaning towards?
26.
Okay.
I think we were talking about the larger facility, just anticipation that the town was going to
Yeah.
still
Yeah.
continue to grow.
Yeah.
Great.
Yep.
So I think we're all in agreement, and Bob,
Yep.
I know you've been there many
Yep.
times. We all toured. I think the need is pretty evident. I think that's
Yeah.
right.
Yep.
So, okay.
I
So,
would agree.
Eric, what do you need from us tonight to move this forward?
Yeah.
I guess a request from you that or directive from you that I reach out to MRB and request a proposal for the architecture and engineering services, of which I'd bring back to the
To
board
us.
for
Great.
review.
Thank you. I will make that motion.
Perfect. Great. Moved by Councilperson Reese.
I'll second that.
How about that? How about a roll call vote that we,
Drawe.
aye.
Kohl.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
Well,
Four ayes.
Eric,
Thank you.
thank you.
Next item.
Thank you.
Moved and we're on our way there. Long due, long
Just got
overdue.
the pictures there.
Oh, you just got the picture up? Look at you. Too late.
Wait,
Sorry.
wait, let's go back.
Our engineer
look-
here.
We don't need.
There he goes. There's our new
why
building.
I'm not
There's
tech
our
support. I'm
potential
an
new
engineer.
building. I know.
Here's your picture.
There you
Sorry,
go.
I'm slow.
Thank you
Now
so
we have
much.
the
Next, good to go. Next step. Next on Mr.
You were
Tate's.
counting on Eric to rehash the entire presentation.
I didn't think you'd move so fast. I was still working on this picture slide.
Well, we've all been there, you know.
There you go.
I'm very happy. I'm just.
You did very
I'm
good.
just, I'm just working
Thank you.
behind.
Okay.
Well, we're going to ask you again the next in a minute here. So how about a review of the street light upgrade project bids? Mr. Tait, maybe there's probably, I think this is coming up on
Is there
the,
photos for that?
I think he's got a,
Yes.
Yeah,
So,
he
Okay.
did
he
provide
did
us
put
also.
something,
Mark,
it's on our,
Right.
which one
It's
are you
on
going to
our
pull?
thing.
Can you do the materials one first?
in here.
Perfect.
It's on our,
It's right there.
comes up.
Yeah.
Look at that. I got that.
I know, but it comes up on mine too.
Yep,
Oh, that's
Mark's
pretty.
got it on the screen as well.
There you go.
So with this, and kind of been an ongoing project, originally started working with Real-Term Energy to assist with, the kind of an assessment, an overall, audit of how many fixtures we actually have, what the breakdown is, per fixture, where they're located, to be able to come up. We had a kind of a ballpark number that we thought we had, but wanted to know for sure exactly where we were at. They've helped put that together. We were able to go out for bid. They've even helped recently review the actual bids themselves. There were 2 bids that went out, one for the materials, itself. As you see kind of in front of you and on the screens, we did get 3 bids, one from County Line Electric, one from Illuminating Expressions, and one from Bell Electric Supply. While County Line was the lowest cost, kind of flipping through, they did meet all of the specifications for the Cobra head light fixtures. However, for the decorative light fixtures, there was actually, and as noted on here, it says refer to decorative fixture notes. One of the fixtures that they quoted and bid on, what they offered did not meet the minimum controls specification.
Yep.
With that said, the kind of the next lowest bid that met all of the qualifications, all of the specifications, was Illuminating Expressions, for a total price of just shy of $440,000. As Barbara indicated a little while ago, we did allocate $450,000 or earmark $450,000 from ARPA funding to go towards this project. So that would kind of work and still fit in within the budget. In addition, Illuminating Expressions also happens to actually be a local
aren't they?
supplier. They're actually right down, they're on Ridge Road out in Greece. So over the course, one of the things that we put in here is that the fixtures and materials themselves had to supply at least a 10-year warranty, so that if any issues do arise, that it's not at a cost to the town. By them being local, we can, well, it's still going to take a little time to drive to Greece. We can drive there rather than having to ship, entire fixtures or pieces and parts back and forth to the other vendors, being New York City,
New York City, where were
or
they?
out of state entirely.
We can pick them up on our way to work.
You can pick them, there you go. So I love the fact, I like the fact that they're local, but can I just ask you one question on that County Line? When you said they didn't have the decorative, when you go to the 3rd page, they don't have the decorative, but up on top they list all, refer to decorative fixture notes, but they list all in the decoratives up in that
Notes.
up in the financials on the 1st page. Control ready,
so they
it looked
provided a price, but the price in the fixture that they particularly that
Right.
they specified
Yep.
didn't meet
it, okay.
They offered something that
Because it's all the
was
same.
completely different, and here's the
Okay.
price for it, but it
Gotcha.
didn't meet the specifications.
Absolutely, understood. Okay. Questions?
No. So I mean, here's just like my rationale, right? So
Sure.
like, I think when I look at these projects, I just need to know, does it meet the need for the community, for each community, right? And I say this as just quickly breezing through DPW facility, right? And then grilling the poor library on $27,000, which is like a drop in the bucket. But for every project, it's going to have to meet at least an evidence need in the community, and then I just need to know the breakdown of the project in plain English, and then understand where is the money coming from, and then has it already been allocated. So I think with the LED lights, right?
Yep.
I understand we're looking at the middle bid that is, again, not the cheapest, and while we all want to be careful with fiscal responsibility, it has to meet certain safety recommendations, bid specifications, so that we we review all of them equally and on the same footing. And then I'm looking at safety. So again, if we're contracting for installation or use of it, if it doesn't meet certain criteria, that I'm, going to be looking at our town attorney of, could there be potential liability for the town? I see our workers' comp and other external costs for safety in and out of our departments, right? And so that's like my thinking process, just so that the board understands
Yes,
where I'm coming from. So for this project, where I know the money's coming from, it's been allocated, we've budgeted, it's still coming under budget, even though we're picking not the cheapest bid. So I'm comfortable seeing that illuminating expressions, again, meets all of the criteria, and then most importantly, the safety qualifications.
Yeah, I think, just from what Eric said, I mean, I'm not sure that I would say that County Line Electric is actually the lowest responsible bidder, because apparently they're not meeting the specification. So if you were to go with them and not follow that one specification, the next two bidders could come back and say, well, if I could have had a different control, I could have dropped my price, X amount, and been the low number two. So I would really treat Illuminating Expressions Distributing as really the lowest responsible bidder here.
Makes sense.
Yeah, no, thank you for that.
Yep. Good point. Absolutely. Any other discussion, questions? No? Concerns? How about a motion that we move forward with this for the next legislative meeting? That we hope.
I'll make that motion to move forward with it.
Okay, so that's part one.
Oh, that's right, you want to do the.
Well, who's
I guess
seconding?
You want to,
Yep, let me,
you might want to, because you want them installed too.
Yeah, that's right.
But who's seconding after Bob gave the motion?
Oh, heck, I'll second.
Yeah. But now we want to, we do want to, maybe we can wait and do this in the
Altogether.
installation piece.
This is for the purchase of the materials.
yes, so that,
And then now
yeah,
it's the
part,
installation.
And now it's
there's kind of two
installation.
parts.
Sorry
That
about
was the
that.
actual materials
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah,
So I'll prepare a resolution for the special meeting next week to be able to, or that we're
Yep.
awarding the contract to Illuminating Expressions.
Yes.
The second part of it, Mark, if you can open up the
Is right.
other, the
The
kind of
installation.
breakdown.
Here we go.
So the first time we actually went out for bid for the installation labor component, for whatever reason, there's a little confusion with it. We didn't actually receive any bids. We did go back out, reached out to a number of vendors. I think some of the ones that I was hoping to get, quite a few bids for it. But I also have heard that there's a lot of other kind of projects going on right now. With that said, we did get two different vendors to bid on it. As you see, kind of their price per fixture, very, very close, even coming down to their overall. But the two to bid on this were Merch Electric Company and then Colosino Industries. In speaking with Real Term, they had, I was unfamiliar with Colosino Industries. They had worked with them in the past. However, Merch Electric, even as recent as about a year ago, was the vendor that we had on contract for doing our own streetlight repairs. So we have a kind of a good history and working relationship with them. Merch was the low bidder between the two. And given the fact that he's done quite a bit of work on streetlights as is across the town, I have no hesitation.
Dealing
So
with
in
them.
your past dealings with them, any issues,
No.
any concerns about their workmanship?
No. I mean, and
Okay.
the fact that he's done a lot of the work, I mean, he even knows kind of what, he's got a little bit more familiarity with what we even have, just from kind of past contracts and work that he's done.
And Eric, the town staff won't be involved in any part of this project. This is an all
Correct.
encompassing project for them.
I guess the only involvement the town staff would have is not with the actual fixture installations themselves, but if the contractor goes to install a fixture and is not getting power to that fixture, and we've got to figure out where the short is. Ahead of that, if it's a blown fuse in the ground, a fuse holder,
Sure.
has come
That's on
separated.
us.
We'd be responsible to ensure that there's power to the actual pole and to the fixture, but we would not be doing the actual swapping of fixtures or installation itself.
All right, and we've probably covered this many times before, but so any fixture that's out there is being replaced with a like fixture. In other words, if we see a decorative one at the corner of X and Y, it's going to be the same decorative or something comparable
Yes,
to it.
yes.
So we're not changing.
Nope. So within the actual bid specs for the materials, we took pictures of, all of, and as you can see, we took pictures of all of the 10 acorn post top light fixtures we have.
Okay.
What that looks like, and I told put on for the vendors to come up with a comparable, as close as possible
Sure.
fixture to this. And then that was part of Real Terms review as well, to make sure that it did look, well, maybe not identical, as close as physically possible. Same with the bell down lighting, the caged acorn post tops, the globe post tops, the lantern post tops, to make sure.
And I
that
know
those
you and I have probably talked about this before. What about the 441 stretch around 250? I know that's been a tough one because a lot of accidents have taken out those poles over the years, and there was a supply issue. Are those accounted for in this project?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So I know, and we've even recently been out to take care of and get everything lit on the east side of 250 in the median on 441,
Sure, yep.
including the Cobra Head that's at the northeast corner by Fast Track.
Okay, great.
Those are all working now, and I know the majority of the ones in the western island on 441 are working. There may still be one or two out.
Okay. All right, great,
Okay.
thank you.
But they will all be replaced. The only fixtures kind of townwide that were not included are those within, Veterans Memorial Park and around this building, and over in the Woodfield Estates neighborhood. The Woodfield Estates being, because we just did a kind of a pilot LED upgrade project in that neighborhood 3 years ago. So those have already been converted over to LEDs. We didn't do anything around this building with the idea that all of the fixtures that are being taken down, that are currently installed around the town, will come back to us. Any of the LEDs we can set aside, and then we can kind of come through and replace ourselves around this building.
Okay.
And kind of reuse the fixtures that are still in working order.
All right, thanks.
So your recommendation then would be to go with Merch Electric?
Correct.
Being and you're happy with the work they've
Yep.
done and confident that they would do a good job?
Yep.
Okay.
Now, and I'm sure you're wondering where the money for that would come
Yep.
from. Barbara and I were discussing kind of that earlier. In the street lighting reserves, we have 340,000.
That good?
363.
Okay, that's good.
Right,
363,000.
and that is in the consolidated lighting fund, so that is specifically for lighting, so that covers our
Right,
installation.
so we're good. Perfect.
I'm good then.
You're good with that? Good. It's in a fund, it's supposed to be.
It's there,
Good.
right for lighting, so.
There you go, for lights. All right, can I have a motion that we move ahead for this piece of it for next meeting?
I'll move that we award the LED streetlight installation to Merch Electric.
Perfect. Second?
Second.
Okay. Roll call vote on that, on both now, I think, right?
Drawe.
Aye.
Kohl.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
4 ayes.
Thank you, Amy,
And that's
And
for
I'm
both
sorry.
motions?
for both
So
motions.
that's for both
Aren't they
motions, and the first motion was Bob and...
Me.
And Linda, and then this one was Candace and Linda.
Good. So we can move ahead for the next legislative meeting next week.
Perfect.
Perfect.
And I'm sorry, we missed one little part with the financials, too, to do a resolution to accept the financials.
You're right, we did.
You were going to do that.
I was going to do that. So backtracking, can I make a motion that we move, the financials, for a resolution
So
for the
moved.
next meeting on that as well, that we accept them?
Yes, so moved.
So who's moving?
I will.
No, you can't. Can you?
All right, well, you can move them.
Okay.
You can move them.
Debbie's moving,
You can move
Linda's
it. Yeah.
seconding?
Sure.
Okay.
Roll call vote. How's that?
Okay. Drawe.
Aye.
Kohl.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Thank you for
Aye.
reminding me.
4 ayes.
Thank you so much. Tim, sorry about that. We're
lot
getting
on
to
that
you. Come on,
DPW.
sit. So, thanks for coming up here. So next on the agenda here is a request for a second curb cut at 171 Hillrise Drive. Mr. Tait, this is on you.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you,
as-
Barbara.
Actually, about a little over a month ago, Tim had reached out inquiring about the possibility of a second curb cut to accommodate kind of a loop driveway at 171 Hillrise Drive. So this property itself is a group home owned by Heritage Christian Services. The reason that the request is come in for the loop driveway is to accommodate the ability to kind of come in, loop around, and drive out, rather than the backup alarms of the buses as they're pulling out. I think Tim's had a number of neighbors request, that they turn the backup alarms off.
Right.
Unfortunately, state law doesn't allow that. We get similar requests
heard
when
that
we're plowing,
we've had some instances.
late at night and early
Concerns with that,
mornings.
too.
So, yeah, I mean, if you know Heritage, we're
Yep.
in this town.
And excuse me, sir, I just need your name for the
Oh, my
record.
name's Tim DeFeo, Director of Facilities, Heritage Christian Services.
Thank you.
And I won't be asking for any money today.
Thank you.
Maybe.
But this is one right in the middle of a neighborhood. It's not always
Yes,
that
yes,
case.
it is. But as you can see in this video, a picture's worth 1,000 words. Well,
Yeah,
we
this is,
don't have any volume.
yeah, I mean, this,
Okay, we don't, I could hear the beeping
Yeah,
already
you
in my head.
know, right?
Yeah.
So,
So it's a lot of beeping,
Yep.
and we try to be the best neighbors possible.
Yep.
So when the neighbors started issuing some complaints about the buses, which are probably twice a day, morning and afternoon,
Yep.
we're going to try to make everyone happy and see if we can do it. It is tight. The driveway was expanded a couple years ago.
Yes, I remember that.
It's
So I was just up there too, as a matter of fact, and looked at it, and I wanted to ask you, besides the neighbor, that video, have you approached any of the neighbors and asked them that
That video
Their
came
opinion?
from the neighbor.
that video came from there, right?
Yeah.
And is any other of the neighbors all in
No.
favor of, I mean, did you
Yeah.
talk to them that you were thinking about you'd like to request a driveway in there?
I have not
Circle,
broached
okay.
that subject with them. I thought that, this was probably the best way
Best
to handle it.
alternative.
To eliminate the backing up of the buses.
Sure.
We would instruct all our drivers to, pull in and pull out.
And pull out in
No
the circle?
backing out.
Yep,
It is tight. It's
Yeah.
not as typical as some of our settings.
yep.
Did you still use a garage?
Yes, we
You
use.
can
a
park
garage,
outside
yes.
on the, and we have neighbors in
Yeah.
our neighborhood that have the horseshoe. They're
Yeah.
peppered around the town. It's
Sure.
not totally
This is
unusual.
a standard, would be a
Right,
standard requirement
yeah.
from engineering. If a new group home goes in, see, we've got Heritage Christian going in now,
You're doing.
we require them to have a
Have
loop
the circle.
driveway, just
Oh,
so
really?
you don't have the
Yeah,
backup
I think
alarms
we-
and issues.
Okay.
so.
Well, even
Yeah.
I think
Do
this
you have
is
a
pretty
question?
straight. No, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yes.
I think very familiar with Heritage Christian Service and the services that you provide for a very vulnerable population, and the safety features of the bus are mandated, and I think they're there for a reason, and I understand the inconvenience to neighbors, but I think this is pretty clear cut. I don't think we have any concerns really for a second curb cut, so I'm going to, unless there are any other issues, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we grant the curb cut at 17 Hillrise Drive for the safety of both the residents and incoming, outcoming service providers, as well as consideration for the neighbors.
I'll
Okay.
second that.
All right. Roll call vote, please.
Yeah.
Drawe.
Aye.
Kohl.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
4 ayes.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight, Tim,
Well,
too.
thank you very much.
Thank you for,
Eric, thank you.
I'll send you the
Okay.
application for.
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Good night.
Okay. Appreciate it. Next, now we're going to Mr. Tait, we're done with you tonight. Can you believe that? Hard to believe. No, thank you for, but we're on to Mr. Valentine, awarding the Columbus Crossing bathroom bid.
Yes.
Oh.
So this is the softball bathroom. Been before the board many times, discussing the initial layout, the design, going out to bid. We did take bids just at the beginning of the month. We had 3 successful bidders, and our low bidder was just over $476,000. So we were estimating in the 550. So actually, we were happy with the price that came in. We are also getting funding from Senator Brook, is providing $205,000 towards this project. So just seeing if the board had any questions, concerns. We did MRB as our consultant on this one. They provided a letter I provided to the board. They vetted them. We've worked with this Loyal 9 group. Anybody's familiar with the Laurelton Animal Hospital on Empire Boulevard? Most recently, that was the project they did in town. They most recently did bathrooms at Highland Park, as well as in the village of Fairport. So they've got some similar projects that they've done similar to this. So we're confident in the contractor and the project. So if the board's...
So, Mark, as part of the project file, we didn't get a copy of the bid or delineation, right? So did you get a chance to review those, or are we just vetting it through MRB?
I mean, I vetted it, yes. I went through that on our side, and then MRB as our consultant also provided a letter saying that they were supportive of that as well.
So can you tell me just, it's a wider variance than I thought, or that I anticipated? So before we just go with Loyal 9?
Between the bidders, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay. No, I was just saying, we've worked with Loyal 9 and other locations, so they just recently did an animal hospital on Empire, and then they've recently just completed some bathrooms. The village of Fairport, they just did bathrooms there, if you're familiar, right along the canal, and as well as they've just done one for Highland Park. So they've got some recent projects that they've done that have come out well and are successful.
Okay, but so based on your review of the actual bids and then your experience with them, you don't have concerns that it's nearly
No.
40,000 between contractor 2, right?
40 to 60 between the other 2 bidders.
Okay.
That's a good
It's
thing.
so hard to read these numbers. So you're comfortable with Loyal 9, I guess?
Yes.
Okay, then I'm
Have
fine
we
with
used
it.
any of the other 2 bidders or before?
I've not worked with Maricon. I'm familiar with the name Whitney East. We've used them, in other locations.
Okay.
Loyal 9 came out and walked the project. We had a pre-bid meeting. Of the 3 bidders, they're the ones that came out and walked it. So we had another bidder that they came out and walked it with us, said, here's the spot, here's the location, here's the utilities. So
Yeah,
they were...
and they just did the bathroom at Parrington, the picture we had up the other day, that bathroom.
That makes sense.
They did not do that one. There's another one that's similar on the canal. You've seen it's kind of got glass front doors on it.
I mean, if they actually came, Bob had a good point. I was just trying to guess why the Delta.
The other 2 bidders didn't show up to the pre-bid and didn't
Yeah,
walk it,
so
so
it
maybe they just put some
aimed
more
high.
estimate in there or
Yeah.
put a little fluff just to make sure they're covered. Loyal 9 came out, walked it with us, and so we're comfortable with they know what they're getting into.
So if there are no other,
Maybe the other question, and I'll steal your thunder maybe. The remaining funds are from
This is allocated coming out of the Rec Trust Fund.
Rec Trust, okay. So I'm be clear where
There
it comes from.
Yep.
All right.
We discussed this, and we talked about that for a couple of years. We've been
Yes.
talking about that.
Yep.
Sure. Okay. How about, unless any other questions, motion to move this forward?
I'll move that
Okay.
a resolution be prepared awarding the Columbus Crossing bathroom bid to Loyal 9. I don't see it
yes,
there.
Loyal 9,
Loyal
yes.
9.
I'll second
That's
that.
I took it away
That's
from
all right.
It's gone now. I can't read it.
Bob, a second?
I took it away too soon. My apologies.
Boy,
Who's seconding?
quick.
Yeah.
Jeez,
slow.
you're going to get demoted to Carrie, Carrie's got
I'll gladly slide over, let somebody else do the tech parts.
Roll call vote on this?
Drawe.
Aye.
Kohl.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye, thank you.
Ockenden.
Thank you.
4 ayes.
Thanks, Mark. Okay. Now we have a construction administrative contract for the bathroom. This is has to come with our other.
So in working with MRB, now that we're getting into construction, we asked them for a quote to go through doing the agreements, the bonds, getting in the applications, submittal materials and stuff as part of the construction, to have them look at the product submittal, shop drawings, and as well as work through the paperwork for the backflow preventer within the bathroom. So they came back and proposed a number of $39,610 to do that administrative work for this project.
All right.
Yeah, this is pretty
Questions?
straightforward, too.
Yep.
I don't have any
Yep.
issues. It goes hand in hand with the
So just
Yep, with
look
a
for
bid
execution,
resolution,
yep.
resolution from the board to authorize that award.
Okay. All right.
No vote?
Pardon?
No vote for this?
No,
Yes,
we
we
have
should
to have
do
a
it.
vote.
No, I
Yes,
think
no, we do
Yeah.
have to have a vote. Oh,
Yes, okay.
Yes.
Waiting for the vote.
Yes,
We have a motion, Candace?
I'll go ahead
Okay,
and move
sure.
that we accept the proposal as outlined by MRB Group with
Yep.
respect to the administrative functions of the construction bid.
I'll second that.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Okay, Drawe.
Aye.
Kohl.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
Four
Thank you.
ayes.
Thank you. The Allens, and here we go, another Allens Creek construction bids.
So this one is just to put it out to bid, so I don't have any specific materials for the board tonight.
Okay.
As the board knows, we've been working on this for several years. We actually have a meeting scheduled next Tuesday with the neighbors to roll out to them the project and the latest and greatest. We do have all the permits from the DEC and the Army Corps. That's the final stuff we've been waiting for. And then we're just looking to move ahead into construction this summer. So we've got a time frame between June 15th and October 15th that we can work in the water, just due to fish runs, salmon, trout, and as well as the long-eared bat season starts in October 1st. So if we had any trees we had to take down, we've got to take it down before that time. So just looking to see if the board is ready to move ahead on this project. It's been on our agenda for many years. It's been, we've actually rolled money over from the drainage fund, so we have a dedicated fund for that.
Okay.
We're also receiving $250,000 from Senator Brooke for this project as well.
Right.
So that's helping
Thank
to
you
offset
again,
this.
Senator.
Yeah,
Yep.
she's
So
been very good.
She's been fantastic
Yeah.
She's come
in
through in a lot
supporting
of-
Penfield.
Yep.
So thank you again to
So
her and
then
her office.
This would be dedicated funds out of the drainage fund, and that's been
And we do
earmarked
need to do this,
for
yeah.
Allens Creek for several years.
Okay. Then, based on prior discussions, unless there are any objections, I make a motion that we now send this out for bid.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Drawe.
Aye.
Kohl.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Ockenden.
Aye.
Four ayes.
All right, next item is the Bayview landing grade and fill permit. Mark.
This was before the board. We had a work session a few months ago now. So this is subsequent to the approval of the apartments at Bayview Landing. So that's 1211 Empire Boulevard. As part of that, they're excavating excess materials out of the basement. They wanted to place them on the property. Dr. Howitt and his representatives were here. The board said that they were generally supportive of it. At that time, I still wanted to complete the seeker process, so provided that for the board. So looking at putting the materials on the hillside, they've provided a grading plan and erosion control plan showing how they're mitigating that. They provided the waterfront assessment form, and we've also completed the consistency review as well as the full environmental assessment form for this. Make sure there are no impacts to the wetlands, make sure there's no impacts to the waterfront. So you've seen the plan before. You now have all the seeker information is completed, so whether the board is comfortable with the seeker information and make sure you're comfortable with the declaration of no significant impact for that environmental portion. If so, then
It seems to be in order.
would be a resolution to accept the seeker with the non-significance, and then we, as staff, can then issue the grade and fill permit
Okay.
subsequent to that.
And the consistency finding under the LWRP, too.
Yep, and that's, yep, we completed that with the waterfront assessment form.
That's all in the seeker, correct?
Well, it's separate, but
Separate
it's
seeker.
similar.
Being in LaSalle's Landing, that's an additional level of review in that area, and we've completed that, and that was included with the board's
Are these
documents.
two resolutions, one for seeker and one for the
I
permit?
don't know, I don't believe we need to do a resolution for the grade and fill. Typically, staff issues that. Just looking for the board to handle the seeker part unless council tells me different.
So it's
So
moving
the-
to accept the seeker finding
Yep.
for this property? So moved?
So to prepare a resolution to issue a negative declaration and find that the project is consistent with the local waterfront
Waterfront
consistency
That's good.
plan.
plan.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll second Pete's wording.
Yes.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Drawe.
Aye.
Kohl.
Aye.
Lee. Ockenden.
Aye.
4 ayes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Topsoil sales permit request for the Arbors.
So this is, and I'll pull up the site plan for this one, if it pulls up. So as this focuses to orient you, Atlantic Avenue is along the west side left of your screen. 250 is along the right side. They have an excess amount of topsoil, as being a farm field.
Yep.
Typically, it can be a foot to 18 inches thick. So they're looking to process that. So they've got existing piles you can see out there now. Process that material, sift it, and then sell off what they don't need. We've looked at it, reviewed their numbers of material they have, make sure they've got enough left to properly topsoil. We require 4 inches across the site, so we provided a calculation showing that they'll have an acceptable amount of topsoil to finish the project. They're looking to sell off the excess material that they don't need.
Not selling it right there on the property, are they?
They would, yes.
They're going to have
So that's why it's
trucks
kind of
come in,
located
right?
away from the intersection. One of the biggest things we look at is dust implications,
Yep.
and then as well as noise, so we can make sure they, comply with hours of operation for, sifting.
Do we does this happen quite a bit at other development?
Yep. We did it for Abington, most recently for the town board. It happens in most locations, and especially when it's been a former farm field.
Yep.
There's just that much additional amount of
About how long
vegetation.
does the process go on that they would have it for sale?
Obviously, as fast as they can
Yeah.
sell it off.
Okay.
The sifting would be a dedicated amount of time, and I know, the board had certain limited hours at Abington for the sifting, just so it's not a noise impact to the neighbors.
Right. I would want those.
It
make
it
sure
would
we have those.
impact, wouldn't it? Would it not? And there are.
I mean, you can hear it, so that's why we would want them to comply with normal construction hours. So the 7 a.m., 7 p.m., can't sift outside of that, can't have sales outside of that. And then the 8 to 4 on Saturdays, we'd have them comply with our normal construction hours, so it's not an impact outside of that normal time frame.
And I assume this is fairly common with larger projects?
Projects of this size, this
Something
is
you
normal.
get requests for.
Yep.
It's the first one I've been.
This is normal for that, and then based on the size and the scope of it, that's what kicked it up to the town board's review. On smaller ones, again, it can be administrative and can be handled by staff.
I'm okay with it.
You want to move it?
You moving?
So I don't believe we need a resolution on this one.
We just-
Again, it's issuance of a permit, but I would still do a
Permit.
roll call vote that the board
Right.
approved it, so we've documented that, and then I can issue the permit.
And by permit, is that you that oversees that as far as the engineer?
Yep. The engineering department would be part of our normal review. We have a fee that goes associated with that.
Okay.
Now,
So
we've had this before. The only time it was like an issues in the immediate past was because neighbors it was right in a subdivision that was
And that's
already
why-
Right.
sort of created. This is
Here,
barren.
it's off
This
the
isn't
road,
started.
it's a little
Yeah.
further away from,
Yeah.
existing residential, so, we're not expecting, impact
Maybe they get
complaints.
it all out of the way before the houses are
And that's
put
why
up
they're looking to do it now before they start building homes, so it's
That's a
not an
good thing.
impact to future residents.
Mark, any idea of the estimated time?
For
I
the
asked that.
for the sifting,
Oh, I'm sorry.
for the
That's okay.
sifting, it'll probably take a few weeks to, a month to sift it.
Yeah.
The sale just depends on how fast, other projects need it, want it, so they'll store it
Could
on
be a
site.
while.
But that's just a matter of a dump truck showing up during the day, but you wouldn't differentiate that from any other construction vehicle on the site.
How long is the permit for?
I believe it's for 6 months,
6 months. What are we now? March? Okay.
so that'll take you through September, end of September, which is kind of ending your construction season anyway.
Yeah, that'd be done.
If they're still looking
Is it-
to extend beyond that,
They'd have
we
to
can
come
bring it
back
back
for
to the
another
board for, to reconsider that if it's dragged on or if there's an issue.
Okay.
I would just want to make sure that, no, you clarified that as the engineering department is on top of it, that would be making sure that they're adhering to all the,
Yep, noise and dust are the two
Requirements.
biggest concerns, and we've made them aware of that from the
Yep.
beginning and asked them for the plan of where they're stockpiling the material, where they're going to be selling it
Right.
out of, and then, make sure they're complying with the hours of operation.
okay.
Okay. All right, I move that our town engineer work with the Arbors to allow for a permit for the fill permit
To sell the
and
fill.
sell to sell the soil.
Sure. Second?
Better language.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. And we don't need to,
Well, we can do the call, we just don't have a resolution.
right, I'm sorry, yeah, we can just,
Drawe.
aye,
Kohl.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Ockenden.
right?
Aye.
Four
That we
ayes.
all agree, right? Thank you. And that last, the townwide traffic study, Mark.
So this was something we had talked about last year. We actually had it in our priorities and goals to do a townwide traffic study. And it's an implementation item that's going to be in, or I know it's in the document coming out in the comp plan coming forward. So we're just kind of getting a little jump start on it. But to look at all of the streets, major intersections within the community, obviously we don't have jurisdiction over the county and the state, but we'll still take a look at those and then offer up recommendations that as we see development go on, these intersections may need improvements, look at, timing of lights, look at, safety of intersections. So as going through the scope, Barton LaJudas, who is one of our traffic consultants, put this forth, itemized out what they'd be looking for, looking at accident data, looking at trip generation, and then evaluating those intersections on our behalf, and then putting forth a recommendation. And then we can use that document going forward that we've had an analysis, and then work with county and state, or if it's our intersections, obviously we've got, an assessment of that.
Okay.
So they put forth the scope. I shared that, in your documents, and then as well as their fee. So they have just over $38,000 is their fee for that. That is actually in our engineering budget for this year. So we had accounted for $40,000, so we came in actually under our estimated budget, but that was something, knowing the board had interest in this, we put it in our working budget for this year.
And the last time we had one done was 2008 or something, or?
No, it was before that. I think
Before
it
then?
was in early 2000s was the last time we
Yeah.
did we've done, obviously, we've done the Route 250 corridor study. We've done a lot of individual areas, intersections. But to do a townwide comprehensive one, it's been quite a few years.
Definitely overdue, probably.
And to confirm, you said it's part of the comprehensive plan.
Plan.
Yes.
It's one of the implementation
It's
items that
an
will
item
be
that
coming
they
out in the comprehensive plan coming
That
forward.
was discussed on Monday, too, as well, that they were, that was brought up, too, in
Yep,
the
so it's going to be in that
meeting.
Obviously, it's still in a draft form. Will be issued to the board shortly, and then it'll be a public hearing out to the public coming up. I believe in April. We're looking to schedule a public hearing on that. So we're kind of just getting a jump start on some of those implementation items moving forward.
Anybody have questions? Anybody have concerns? Want to move forward with the study?
Can
So-
I just
Yep.
ask, Mark, I saw for the meetings that they would either be in person or Zoom. Is there, was there any follow-up as to how those would be? I don't know when this was prepared earlier in the year.
So I think they were just kind of hedging their bets if, environmental things took us that they,
Right.
whether through Zoom or not. I know obviously they've been here many times and can be in person. It could be handled either way. Obviously staff, it works both ways. We've been to their office. They've been here. We just recently had one on Zoom. It works all ways for us. so.
Okay, I just didn't want to look at GIS of various streets on a small screen and.
Yep. And then obviously, they'll come in here and report back to the board as they come share their findings.
And I'm sorry if I missed this. When would the traffic study commence and then the duration?
And I don't know if they
It wasn't in the notes.
I don't know their schedule. Obviously, they're waiting, obviously the board is looking to moving ahead, and then I think they'd go out and do their counts. I believe their counts would take a few months, do their analysis, and then it'll probably be later this year that they would have something to report back to the board, but it would be within this calendar year.
So there's not a resolution for this?
The resolution would be to authorize the deputy supervisor to sign the contract to move ahead.
Even though we don't have the information, like we would start something else that you would say, it's going to cost so much, but it's going to last, the whole study's going to start here and
I mean, I've got the cost estimate.
The cost is just under $39,000.
Would that
So-
be it? It wouldn't be the particulars
It's
You don't-
broken down. Hold on, let me.
for now?
Let me go back.
There'll be another resolution probably.
I lost my page.
No?
If we can just
Yeah, so here's the breakdown of their summary, so their time to,
Yeah.
get into a number of meetings,
Right, just
their
like
analysis, their hours, and then obviously their fee breakdown is here, so that's the
How about-
38,800.
Because I am also curious, like, when are they going to start, and the duration of the project? I can't imagine, that they would be taking years to accomplish this, right? But
No, they'd have this done within 6 months.
If you want, would you be more comfortable us waiting and getting a detailed dates?
No, I was
okay.
going to propose that we can, I was going to propose a motion tonight that we go ahead and authorize signature for the proposal fee as delineated here to lock in this price, but ask for, as a contingency, some idea of an updated timeline.
Sure.
Very good. Yeah.
Okay,
I'll second that.
Thank you.
yeah.
Linda.
Draw,
I'm sorry, roll call, but yeah, Drawe, aye.
Cole,
Aye.
Lee.
Hi.
It's been long.
I know,
long day.
it's
Sorry.
long day.
There's a lot of stuff on this
There was.
agenda.
I'm here.
Okay, so thanks for that. Okay, we're through the action items. There's no informational items this evening, no held items, no old business, any new business, board? Seeing none. Our next work session is going to be April 19th, right here. I want to thank the guests that came tonight, as well as PCTV and the staff, as well Eric, I know, and Mark stayed to the end. Thank you. So I can adjourn this meeting at 8:10, and have a wonderful night. Thank you.